So, after the collapse of Minoans, the focus of the Aegean trade and civilization moved to the Greek mainland. Now, what exactly caused the collapse of Minoan society is still kind of a debate among archaeologists. But one of the most prominent theories is that sometime around 1600, a massive volcanic eruption on the island of Thera. You see Thera today as this kind of horseshoe-shaped island in the middle of the Mediterranean. But it's a volcanic island. And this huge volcanic eruption, one of the largest in the region in history, likely caused a large scale disruption of Minoan trade. First, it destroyed an incredibly profitable trading center at the site of Akrotiri that's been extremely well preserved because of their volcanic remains. Not to quite to the level of Pompeii or Herculaneum, but the excavations at Akrotiri have found a lot of really beautiful palace frescoes and remains that wouldn't normally be preserved. Now, one of the really fascinating things is that unlike Pompeii or Herculaneum, this eruption didn't appear to kind of preserve society, and we find so far in the excavations no bodies, which means that either the people were able to see this coming and get off the island, or that they weren't so fortunate, but at least they weren't stuck in the palaces and the excavated areas. So this was an incredibly profitable trade center with Crete to the south, and so this might have disrupted trade in Cretan society in the Cyclades here. Right. Now the other thing that it would have done is it probably created a series of large tsunamis, waves, and there's been excavations near the palaces at Malea on Crete that have shown deep ocean seashells that are found in the same sediment layers as the palace and its destruction level. So we can probably think about a large-scale disruption, at least on the northern coast of Crete, which was the most populous and most important for the trade into the modern Aegean today, would have been destroyed, ravaged by a large tsunami. That would have kind of dealt an extremely excruciating economic blow based on the loss of those ships and trade through this region. The other effect that has been proven through the eruption of Thera is that it lowered climatic temperatures by about 1 or 2 degrees Celsius for at least 10 to 15 years after the eruption. And so this would have prolonged, kind of had a negative effect of basically wiping out summer harvest, in particular of grape and olive oil, right? Because those require that Mediterranean style climate, and if it gets colder in the summer, they're not going to grow in the same way. So we can kind of see these three things together. Crete wasn't directly affected by the volcanic eruption in the same way that we think about Pompeii and Herculaneum. It's not buried under massive lava flows, but the after effects, the tsunamis, right, and the large-scale climate change probably led to the decline that we see in Minoan society. Now, that's still all up for debate archaeologically, but that is probably the most well-grounded archaeological theory for the collapse of Minoan society. What is clear is that afterwards we see the influence of the Mycenaeans. Now, the other thing to kind of think about is the Mycenaeans, if you're familiar with Greek history, that this is likely the time of the Homeric epics. Now, I'm not going to say that the conquest of Troy, which has largely been identified at the site of Ilium in western Turkey, represents the Troy of the Iliad and the Odyssey. No more than Mycenae, right? The site here in the Peloponnesus represents the location of the Homeric epic from where this kind of war started. But what is clear is that in the Homeric epic, Mycenae is the leader of a Greek council of city-states, and in this time period, Mycenae is the largest and most powerful of these hilltop fortresses that characterize Mycenaean civilization. We see an increased emphasis on militarism. Burial goods include weapons, armors, and goods with scenes of combats. And we have an intricate network of roads that connect agricultural communities and port cities to these large-scale citadel fortresses. So we have an emphasis here on conflict, probably between a series of rising city-states. We don't want to think about the Mycenaean civilization as a large-scale society all coordinated from the capital at Mycenae, but rather we probably have a series of connected city-states, and that matches up well again with the Homeric epic that we see. So this isn't necessarily saying that Homer is a history. But what it is kind of recognizing is the more we kind of dig into the archaeology, we can see the foundations for an oral history that was written down some 700 to 800 years after the fact by Homer. So we can kind of think about keeping those memories alive, much in the same way as maybe the palaces at Knossos represented the ideas of the labyrinth and the important and expansive storage systems there. Now, Minoan civilization had created a writing system that's called Linear A to administer the palace complexes, but we still don't have a good translation. They're still not be able to read Linear A. However, in the Mycenaean period, we are able to read Linear B script. And this is the earliest decipherable language in the Aegean, and it has direct connections to ancient Greek. So we can see the emergence here of a writing system that is Greek in nature and provides the foundation for later classical archaic Greek. The text from within Linear B tablets basically record the shipment of goods from the ports and agricultural communities into the palaces of the citadel. They are largely economic, right? No one's writing down Agamemnon's victory over Troy, right, in the same kind of way. This kind of emerges the same way writing emerged in Mesopotamia, to account for all of the goods that are flowing in and out of the palace complexes. It's an administrative account. Bureaucratic management is the mother of invention. Necessity here requires to be able to keep track of all of this, the incoming and outgoing receipts requires some kind of writing system. And that's what we largely see with Linear B tablets.